Long before European ships reached North American shores, a vibrant tapestry of indigenous cultures thrived across the continent. These cultures were as diverse as the landscapes they inhabited, each with its own unique identity and way of life. From the icy expanses of the Arctic Circle to the warm shores of the Gulf of Mexico, diverse Native American tribes developed unique languages, traditions, and ways of life. Each tribe adapted to their specific environment, creating a rich mosaic of cultural practices. These first Americans lived in harmony with nature, relying on the land for sustenance and shaping their societies around its rhythms. They were skilled farmers, hunters, and gatherers, using their deep knowledge of the land to thrive in various ecosystems. They built intricate social structures, mastered agriculture, and developed complex belief systems that honored the natural world. Their societies were often organized around clans or kinship groups, with each member playing a vital role in the community. Their stories, passed down through generations, formed the foundation of human history in North America. These oral traditions were not just tales, but were essential in preserving the knowledge, values, and history of their people. These early civilizations developed sophisticated methods of agriculture, adapting to the diverse environments they inhabited. They cultivated a variety of crops, such as maize, beans, and squash, which became staples in their diet. In the arid southwest, the Pueblo people constructed elaborate irrigation systems to cultivate crops in the challenging climate. These systems were engineering marvels, allowing them to sustain large communities in otherwise inhospitable environments. The eastern woodlands tribes practiced a mix of agriculture, hunting, and gathering, relying on the rich resources of the forests and rivers. They developed techniques to manage the land sustainably, ensuring that resources would be available for future generations. Along the Pacific Northwest coast, tribes like the Haida and Tlingit built elaborate wooden structures and developed a rich maritime culture based on fishing and whaling. Their totem poles and canoes are iconic symbols of their craftsmanship and connection to the sea. The spiritual beliefs of indigenous peoples were deeply intertwined with their respect for nature. They believed that every element of the natural world had a spirit, and that humans were just one part of a larger interconnected web of life. They saw themselves as part of a larger web of life, recognizing the interconnectedness of all living things. This worldview fostered a deep sense of responsibility to maintain balance and harmony with the environment. Their ceremonies and rituals honored the spirits of the animals, plants, and elements, seeking balance and harmony with the natural world. These practices were integral to their way of life, guiding their interactions with the environment and each other. These ancient traditions and beliefs would have a profound impact on the future of the continent, even as the arrival of Europeans brought about dramatic changes to the land and its people. The interactions between Native Americans and Europeans would shape the course of history, leading to both conflict and cooperation. The arrival of Europeans in the late 15th century marked a turning point in the history of North America. Driven by a thirst for exploration, wealth, and religious freedom, European powers set sail across the Atlantic, forever altering the course of the continent. Christopher Columbus's voyages, while mistakenly believing he had reached Asia, opened the door to a new era of transatlantic exchange. Spanish conquistadors, seeking gold and glory, established colonies in Central and South America, while other European nations soon followed suit, drawn by the promise of new opportunities and riches. In 1607, the first permanent English settlement in North America was established at Jamestown, Virginia. The colonists, seeking economic opportunity, faced harsh conditions, disease, and conflict with Native American tribes. The cultivation of tobacco, a cash crop in high demand in Europe, proved crucial to the survival and eventual prosperity of the colony. Jamestown's establishment marked the beginning of a wave of English colonization along the Atlantic coast, laying the foundation for a new nation. The arrival of Europeans brought not only new technologies, ideas, and systems of governance, but also diseases to which Native Americans had no immunity. Smallpox, measles, and other illnesses ravaged indigenous populations, decimating their numbers and weakening their ability to resist European encroachment. The clash of cultures, competition for resources, and the devastating impact of disease led to a complex and often tragic relationship between Native Americans and European colonists. Along the Atlantic seaboard, 13 distinct colonies emerged, each with its own unique character and economic pursuits. These colonies, stretching from the northern reaches of New England to the southern plantations, formed the backbone of what would become the United States. From the bustling port of Boston, where ships carried goods and ideas across the Atlantic, to the fertile farmlands of Pennsylvania, where settlers cultivated the land, these colonies attracted people from diverse backgrounds. They came seeking religious freedom, economic opportunity, and a new life in the New World, each bringing their own customs, traditions, and hopes for the future. The New England colonies, founded by Puritans seeking religious liberty, developed a strong tradition of self-governance and a focus on maritime trade. Their rocky soil made large-scale farming difficult, so they turned to the sea, becoming skilled shipbuilders and traders. This maritime economy fostered a sense of independence and resilience among the New Englanders. The middle colonies, characterized by religious tolerance and a mix of agriculture and commerce, became a melting pot of cultures and ethnicities. Here, Quakers, Catholics, Lutherans, Jews, and others lived side by side, contributing to a rich tapestry of cultural and economic life. The fertile land and navigable rivers supported both farming and trade, making these colonies prosperous and diverse. The southern colonies, with their reliance on slave labor and plantation agriculture, developed a distinct social hierarchy and economic system. Large plantations growing tobacco, rice, and indigo dominated the landscape, and the wealth generated by these crops created a powerful class of landowners. However, this prosperity was built on the backs of enslaved Africans whose labor was essential to the southern economy. As the colonies grew in population and economic power, tensions with Great Britain began to escalate. The colonies' increasing self-sufficiency and economic success made them less dependent on the mother country, leading to a growing desire for greater autonomy. The British government, seeking to exert greater control over its colonies and to recoup the costs of its wars, imposed a series of taxes and regulations that were met with resistance from the colonists. Acts such as the Stamp Act and the Townshend Acts placed financial burdens on the colonies, sparking widespread protest and anger. The colonists, accustomed to a degree of self-governance, resented what they perceived as infringements on their liberties and economic autonomy. They had developed their own legislative assemblies and were used to making decisions about local matters. British interference was seen as an overreach and a threat to their way of life. The cry of no taxation without representation became a rallying cry for colonial resistance as the seeds of rebellion were sown. This slogan encapsulated the colonists' belief that they should not be taxed by a government in which they had no political voice. The escalating tensions between Great Britain and its American colonies were further fueled by a series of events that galvanized colonial resistance. Incidents such as the enforcement of the Quartering Act, which required colonists to house British soldiers, and the imposition of the Tea Act, which granted the British East India Company a monopoly on tea sales, only deepened the divide. The Boston Massacre, in which British soldiers fired upon unarmed colonists, ignited outrage and fueled anti-British sentiment. This tragic event was used by colonial leaders as a powerful propaganda tool to unite the colonies against British oppression. The Boston Tea Party, a daring act of defiance in which colonists dumped British tea into Boston Harbor to protest unfair taxes, demonstrated the colonists' willingness to take bold action against what they perceived as tyranny. This event was a significant escalation in the conflict, showing that the colonists were prepared to challenge British authority directly. These events, along with the Intolerable Acts, a series of punitive measures imposed by the British government in response to colonial resistance, pushed the colonies closer to the brink of war. The Intolerable Acts, which included the closing of Boston Harbor and the revocation of Massachusetts' charter, were seen as draconian measures that could not be tolerated. The stage was set for a revolutionary struggle that would change the course of history. In 1775, the simmering tensions between Great Britain and its American colonies erupted into open warfare. The colonies, long frustrated by British taxation without representation and other forms of political and economic control, had reached a breaking point. The battles of Lexington and Concord marked the beginning of a conflict that would last for 8 grueling years. The American Revolutionary War, a conflict that would test the resolve of both sides, pitted the British Empire with its mighty military and vast resources against a determined but outmatched colonial army. The British, confident in their superior numbers and training, underestimated the resolve and ingenuity of the colonial forces. The colonists, inspired by the ideals of liberty and self-governance, fought valiantly, utilizing their knowledge of the terrain and employing guerrilla tactics to harass the British forces. These tactics, which included ambushes and hit-and-run attacks, were crucial in offsetting the British advantage in conventional warfare. The Declaration of Independence, adopted by the Continental Congress on July 4, 1776, stands as a testament to the ideals that fueled the American Revolution. This document was not just a statement of separation, but a bold assertion of the colony's right to self-determination and a new vision for governance. Penned by Thomas Jefferson, this historic document proclaimed the colony's separation from Great Britain and articulated the fundamental principles of human rights and self-governance that would shape the nation's identity. Jefferson's eloquent words laid the foundation for a new nation built on the principles of equality and individual rights. The Declaration's assertion that all men are created equal and endowed with certain unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, resonated far beyond the shores of North America, inspiring movements for freedom and equality around the world. This powerful message would echo through the centuries, influencing countless struggles for justice and human rights. The American Revolution was a long and arduous struggle, marked by both triumphs and setbacks for the colonial army. Battles such as Saratoga and Trenton showcased the resilience and strategic brilliance of the colonial forces, while defeats like the loss of New York City tested their resolve. The Continental Army, led by General George Washington, faced numerous challenges, including shortages of supplies, trained soldiers, and financial resources. Washington's leadership and ability to inspire his troops were pivotal in keeping the army together through the darkest times. However, the colonists' determination, combined with crucial support from foreign allies such as France, ultimately turned the tide of the war. French military aid, including troops, naval support, and supplies, played a critical role in the eventual victory. The British surrender at Yorktown in 1781 marked a decisive victory for the colonists, securing their independence and paving the way for the establishment of a new nation. This momentous event signaled the end of British rule in the American colonies and the birth of the United States of America, a nation founded on the principles of freedom and democracy.